And welcome to another episode of John's Eclectic Photo Time Adventure, episode 31, John's RC Airplane Adventure. The alarm chimed quietly before dawn, and John rose from bed with the kind of anticipation that only comes when the day ahead promises something different. As a landscape and wildlife photographer, this weekend often blended into long treks through forest or silent hours under star-filled skies. But today, this Saturday, would be a break from the ordinary. The morning air was cool as he loaded his gear into the SUV. His Canon R5 Mark II, extra batteries, tripods, filters, and a thermos filled with hot coffee. By the time he left his driveway, the eastern horizon was softening into shades of lavender and pale gold. Union Grove State Park at Stillhouse Lake was his destination, and he planned to arrive before the first glimmer of daylight broke free. The lake was still and silent when he arrived, a mirror of muted colors waiting for the sun's brush. John carried his tripod, coffee steaming in one hand, down toward the shoreline. A large, weathered section of driftwood stretched along the sand, its twisted form etched by years of water and wind. Just to the left stood a lone pine tree, its tall silhouette adding balance to the scene. The elements fell into perfect place. Near object, middle ground, and the far horizon, where the sun would soon rise. He adjusted his tripod and steadied his Canon, his fingers working by muscle memory through the settings. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, John's viewfinder filled with fire. He began a series of shots, blending focus stacking with exposure bracketing, intent on capturing every detail. The gnarled driftwood, the pine spindly framed, and the glowing orb of the sun cresting over Stillhouse Lake. The soft lapping of waves mixed with the gentle click of his shutter. For that brief window of time, the world seemed to exist, only for him, his lens, and the light. With the sunrise captured, John returned his gear to the SUV, refreshed and readied for the second half of his morning. Only a mile away lay the RC airfield, where something entirely new awaited him. He wasn't photographing eagles, deer, or landscapes this time, but small aircraft brought to life by the hands of passionate hobbyists. He parked along the far left side of the lot and began setting up. The Canon R5 found its place on a sturdy tripod, fitted with a gimbal, its flexibility perfect for following fast-moving subjects. After a few test shots and the short clips of the empty runway, John was approached by two men, Charles and Steve, members of the local RC Airplane Club. They struck up a conversation, and John soon found himself opening his portfolio case, pulling out both 13 by 19 and 17 by 22-inch prints, landscape, wildlife, astrophotography. Charles whistled softly as he thumbed through them, pausing on a Milky Way shot that seemed to spill stars off the paper. "Beautiful work," Charles said. "You'll have no trouble getting good shots here." By then, more club members had arrived, the lot filling with cars and trucks unloading colorful aircraft. At precisely 8 a.m., the first flyer stepped forward, not with a plane, but with a helicopter. John raised his camera as the rotors blurred to life. The craft leapt from the runway like an insect-like agility, darting upward, twisting, diving, performing maneuvers impossible for any full-sized aircraft. Through his lens, John struggled to keep focus, the machine darting faster than he anticipated. It reminded him of a damselfly, flirting and skimming in the sky. Nearby, a small dog meandered unconcerned, wagging its tail despite the roar of miniature engines. The scene struck John as oddly enduring, the dog and the whine of the propellers blending into a rhythm of its own. Soon, multiple planes took to the air, some styled after wartime legends. Against the pale blue sky, an A-10 Warthog replica carved across the horizon, followed by vintage biplanes banking gracefully. 6 members lined their aircraft at the end of the runway and at once launched into synchronized flight. John's shutter clattered as he captured the formation from takeoff to a series of aerial maneuvers, loops, rolls, and dives, silhouetted against the sun as it now climbed behind them, throwing warm light across the airfield. Between the flights, helicopters returned to the sky. One pilot lost control, and the craft spun awkwardly before crashing into the runway with a sharp crack. There was a moment of stillness, then laughter and groans from the members, who hurried over to inspect the damage. John captured the moment discreetly, documenting not only the aircraft, but the human camaraderie surrounding it. By midday, the club called a pause for lunch. Tables unfolded, coolers opened, and the airfield shifted from buzzing engines to the hum of conversation. Families and friends gathered, plates balanced on their laps, trading stories between bites. John, ever observant, snapped a few candid photos. Smiles, children pointing at planes, the quiet joy of the community. When the last shutter click of his RC airfield session was done, John packed his equipment, thanked Charles and Steve, and drove back toward Stillhouse Lake. The sun was higher now, glittering off the water's surfaces. Along the shoreline, he spotted Pooh, an old retiree with his fishing pole propped at the water's edge. The man's posture spoke of patience and peace, a contrast to the morning's aerial frenzy. John raised his camera once more. Through the viewfinder, he framed Pooh against the rippling lake, his figure a quiet testament to the simplicity of time well spent. The shutter closed, and John knew the day's story was complete. A fairy sunrise, the whirl of tiny engines, and the laughter of friends, and finally, a fisherman waiting for a bite. It was not his usual Saturday, but perhaps that was what made it even better. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of John's RC Airplane Adventure, part of John's Eclectic Storytime Adventure Series, episode 31. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. Thank you.